Hello everybody, my name is GhostBit and welcome to episode 2 of GhostBit's Feedbacks. That's right, I've officially renamed it to GhostBit's Feedbacks. Originally it was called Reviews, and honestly that didn't make any sense because I'm giving you more feedback than I am reviewing the game. So from here on out, that's what we're going to call it. So let's move on. Episode 2, we only had just one entry, so that is what we're going to cover, and it's on Mango Works' Neon Explorer. So without further ado, let's dive deep into this project. This game is in alpha, so I am going to go light on the graphics. I'm not going to go too hard, but I figured I'd briefly mention them, and then we're going to go straight into what I didn't like about the game and what Mango Works can do to improve them on the project. So graphics, let's go over this very quickly. It's in alpha stage, so in my head, I'm thinking all of this is temporary. None of this is permanent. I do hope Mango Works intends on changing the graphics, so that is what I am seeing, because if this is what his vision was trying to be in the end, like the final product, then I advise you go back and redo it, or hire an artist, or just download some assets. There you go, simple as that. I'll dive more into that later on in the video, but that's a very easy solution if you're struggling with graphics. Just get another artist or download some assets. So moving on, now let's go on into the main course. Now let's go on to the main course, and that is gameplay. Before I dive deep into what Mango Works did completely wrong here, there is one very important question I need to ask, and this is the source of the root of all the issues here. Mango Works, what is your game trying to be? Because when I played, I didn't understand what I was playing. Was your game? It felt like your game was supposed to be a shoot 'em up, but like last minute you changed it to a top down. It controls like a top down, but you can't aim. But you move like a top, you have top down movements, but that could easily be classified as a shoot 'em up. You can move up, down, left to right. There's screen wrap in the game, which is nice, and then you can move around. And that's where the element of it's trying to be a top down, because it feels like it's trying to be a top down, but I could see it easily being a shoot 'em up, because I say shoot 'em up because your enemies are only coming in one direction. So I feel like you yourself don't know the answer to this question. Simple solution: find out what your game's trying to be. If your game's trying to be a shoot 'em up, then go the shoot 'em up route. Study shoot 'em up games. Look at what makes a shoot 'em up game a shoot 'em up. That simple, and then apply that to your game. If your game's trying to be a top down, I expect to aim with the mouse and look in the direction that I'm aiming. One of the most frustrating things about this is you shoot with the left mouse button, but you can't aim. You only shoot in one direction, and that drove me nuts. And I expected to aim, but I couldn't aim, so that was very frustrating and not good game design on your end here. I mean, if your game's trying to be a shoot 'em up, simple solution: take out the left mouse button and just simply put space or enter, and there you go. Your game's halfway done into be a shoot 'em up. Actually mostly done, but you still need to a long ways to go there. If your game's trying to be a top down, simple solution: have the character actually move and aim with the mouse cursor. It's that simple. Boom. And now your game's almost a top down. You just need to apply more elements to make it official. Otherwise is the character movements, very sluggish, very poorly done. I felt like you didn't spend too much time on this, because that's how it felt like. The character moved super slow, and it wasn't quick and snappy, and that was very bothersome, because when you either genre that I just mentioned, top down or shoot 'em up, I expect to move nice and quick because enemies are coming at all directions, or enemies coming on one section, and I expect to move around, and I didn't feel that with your game. Your game was very slow paced. Another thing I didn't like was the reloading. So the way you reload is you hold the right mouse button and you simply just hold it until the timer goes up, and then you're officially reloaded. That's a very annoying mechanic. You can just simply click on the right mouse button and boom, I have reloaded, add a nice little sound effect to it, voila. It's nice and simple and snappy. Reloading shouldn't have to be a pain, and I understand why he did the reloading, and I'll get to that in a minute as to why he went and chose the reloading to be annoying. So I've mentioned everything that was bothersome about the gameplay. Let's move on to enemy AI and upgrades and bosses. Enemy AI was poorly done. There was no difference. There was different enemies, but here's a fact for you, Mango Works. Whenever doing enemy AI, it's not creative, or with like another enemy has more health than the previous enemy. That's not really creative because they all still move the same direction. So that's not really challenging in any way at all. This goes back to my main question. What is your game trying to be? Because once you've answered that, study how enemies move. Study how hard they are. You know, some enemies fight back. They shoot back at you. None of the enemies did any of that. They just It just went in one direction, which is boring. Study enemy AI. Really look into what makes an enemy. What is the enemy doing? You just adding a bunch of health to like a second enemy tier doesn't do anything. That's just poorly designed. That's lazy design, honestly. You really need to dive into enemy AI and look at what makes an enemy for any genre that you're going as, whether it's going to be top down or shoot 'em up. Next is upgrades. Now, I wasn't going to mention this originally because there's a lot of issues with the gameplay and even the core genre of the game, which, MangoWorks doesn't seem to know at this moment, but I figured I'd review it as well. A lot of the upgrades I didn't like. Some of the upgrades didn't even do what they said they were supposed to do. There was an upgrade that it says you make your bullets bigger, but it doesn't. It's still the same size. There's an upgrade that drove me bananas, where like you shoot in two directions, because remember, you can only shoot in one direction because that's very annoying. So now you shoot in two different directions, and it shoots in the most ugly way. Like you shoot in two, one up and then one down, and it's funny because the enemies can just easily go in the middle, and then there you go. I know, simple solution, just move up and down, but it shouldn't have to be that awkward where I have to kind of position myself just to try to get the enemies. So that upgrade was completely pointless, and I tried my best to ignore it. A lot of the upgrades I didn't like. I didn't enjoy any of them except for one, which was the turret upgrade. That was the one I always dove into whenever I saw it, because that was the only useful upgrade. Otherwise, they were all pointless and they didn't do what they were saying they were doing. Another big issue I found with the upgrades is I understand that MangoWorks hid one of the upgrades where you had faster reloading speed. To me, that's poor design. Something that should be given in the beginning shouldn't have to be an upgrade. Like that should be something I should be able to do off the bat. If you're looking for something creative, how about a reloading upgrade that reloads twice the amount of ammo? There you go. That makes me want to get that upgrade because that's something very useful. Again, this goes back to your main issue. What is your game trying to be? Once you've discovered that, look at, if you're looking for a shoot 'em up game, and look at what some shoot 'em up games that have upgrades. What is their upgrades doing that makes the game more fun? You should study that. Same thing with top down. If you're looking for upgrades, look at their upgrades. Any game, honestly, that has a proper upgrade system, and look at what they're doing that makes it more unique to the game. You shouldn't put a bunch of upgrades that feel like they should be necessary in the beginning of the game, and don't put that as an upgrade, because that's not fun at all. Something that I should have in the beginning shouldn't be locked in an upgrade. Now, he does have a boss, and I didn't manage to reach the boss, and the boss was okay. He has a little shield. At first, I swear to God, I thought this was a tornado. He has a little shield that goes around him, and then you just kind of shoot. He does have different phases. I don't have nothing negative to say about the boss, because by the time I reached the boss, mostly everything in the game drove me nuts, or I just hated it. The boss just kind of felt he was okay. There was nothing wrong with him other than the art design, but boss phase wise, it was, if I have the only thing I could say to add on to is maybe a health bar to see how much, how much is left to, take out his health, but that's about it. I'm just nitpicking there. So that is mostly everything I've tackled overall. One very important question, and I'll lay it down to you, MangoWorks, step by step. Step 1, figure out what your game's trying to be. Because if you don't know what your game is trying to be, and you kind of skim it over, or you just kind of go, oh yeah, it's like a top down, but you obviously go in a very different direction, then your game's going to be a hot mess no matter what you put in. So the first thing you need to do is ask yourself what your game's trying to be. If your game's trying to be a top down game, then study top down games. Look at what they do that makes them a top down game. Same thing with if your game's trying to be a shoot 'em up, well then go in that direction. Look up shoot 'em up games, play some shoot 'em up games, study what they do, study the movements of the player, study the movements of the enemy AI. This is something you should have done before you even made anything. You should have known this off the bat. I felt like you didn't know this off the bat, and you just wanted to make a game because you were super excited about it. I get it, I understand. I've done plenty of projects like that too early on in my days. That's what you need to do. Once you've actually answered the question and you've studied the genre that you're trying to go to, then you can go polish the character movements. And this goes back to the genre that you're studying. All the games that you've tried out for that genre, you can feel how the player moves and just simply add that onto the player. Player movement should be something that a game developer just skims over. They should spend a lot of quality of time, polishing. You should spend a great deal of time with player movement. This is something you shouldn't just skim over and just slap a speed, and then there you go. He moves at 50. Boom, I'm done. That's not solid. You need to put more work in and more effort in. Add some acceleration to it. Make that movement feel nice and tight. You know, I don't like when game developers just slap on the speed and there you go. That's enough for me. That's like, you know, in a game jam, that's perfectly fine because you have like 48 hours or 72 hours. But when you're making an actual game, no excuses. You should spend weeks on end polishing that movement. So that's what you need to do as well. And then controls. Again, the aiming drove me nuts. Make up your mind. Is it going to be a top down? If it is, then I expect if you're going to use the mouse to shoot, I also expect to aim as well, because that drove me nuts, and that was one of the major things I hated about your game. If it's not, then simply switch it to the spacebar. Boom, there you go. Because you know you can shoot in one direction, and that's already a top down shooter. I mean, a shoot 'em up. The last thing I should mention is graphics. I mentioned this earlier in the video, but I figured I'd go full blown the details. MangaWorks, I really do hope all the art that I've saw so far was temporary, because this is an alpha stage. Because if it's not, then I would suggest you change it, because none of it was good. Couple of solutions. You can easily just hire an artist. Hopefully they're not too expensive. I haven't done this myself because I myself am an artist. Or option 2, you can just download assets. There's tons of them. Sometimes they go on sale. Just keep a sharp eye on itch.io. There's a lot of very good art assets out there for you to download and to help you make your game the way it is. So again, there's several solutions here. If you're trying to do the art yourself, then I would suggest you take a solid month or 2 or as much as you can and really polish your art. There's several options for you to do that. There's Pixel Dailies on Twitter. You can participate every day and they give you like a challenge. You know, draw every day and really practice your craft. If you're really trying to go that route and really try to just do the art all yourself, that's a video in it of itself, by the way. So if you guys want to see me cover how to be a pixel artist, basics at least, then I mean I could dive into that, but I feel like I'm not the one that qualifies because I'm still learning a lot myself. But I mean, hey, I don't mind giving a tip or two here in the beginning artist. I'm getting off track here. So that's about it. MangaWorks, if you still have more questions, hit me up. If you want to participate in the next video episode, I tend to drop these once a month. Then the link is down below. Go straight into my Discord, submit your game in the submit your game section, and I will review the game as fast as I won't review it. I will give you feedback in the next month's episode, and I'll break it down as to what I like and what I didn't like and what you could improve upon. I do want to do a lot of these, but I mean, it all depends on demand. If there's no demand for it, then I won't make any of these, but my link will always be open, of course. That is it for this episode. MangaWorks, I really do hope you absorbed all of the knowledge I gave to you. I really do hope your game succeeds. Again, let me know if you have any questions. This is GhostBit, and I will see you in the next episode.